Hello, viewers. Welcome to the YouTube channel Ex Consilium Foundation. And for the playlist in Similia, we are here with the senior advocate Sudhesh Pai, who's well known for his work as an author, Legends in Law, that is widely read across the length and breadth of the country. And in this, he has chronicled some of the all-time greats in who have straddled the path of legal profession in India. And welcome, Sudhish. In the last video, we were speaking about Shah Suleiman, and you had made a mention about his role and his interest when the Government of India Act, the new act at that point of time, came up, and these governments were formed by Congress also in various states. Now, that was, you spoke about Government of India Act, and some years down the line, we had our Constitution, where Dr. Rajendra Prasad headed the Constituent Assembly, and Pandit Nehru and Ambedkar and very many stalwarts were there. They were contribution of another stalwart now relating to the Constitution of India in Sir BN Rau. You have spoken about him, written about him on page 269 of your book. I would request you to recount the contribution of Sir BN Rau as the principal draftsman for the Government of India.
So BN Rau again, like Sir Shah Suleiman, about whom we spoke, had an extraordinary, brilliant career. After his degree from the Madras University, he proceeded to England, where he also earned a tripos in mathematics. He was in Trinity College, Cambridge, and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru also was in the same college a couple of years junior to him. And Pandit Nehru's class fellow was BN Rau's younger brother, Bengaluru Rau, who also was ICS and rose to be the longest serving governor of the Reserve Bank. So BN Rau took his tripos in mathematics and then successfully completed his ICS and came back to India, allotted to the Bengal cadre, where he chose to join the judicial branch. So he did judicial work. He was a district and sessions judge, but very soon associated himself, or he was called upon to associate himself with a lot of governmental work, various commissions and committees. In course of time, the Government of India Act 1935 was enacted. Its principal draftsman was, of course, Sir Maurice Wire in England. But the 1935 Government of India Act repealed the earlier 1919 Government of India Act. But the laws enacted earlier were to continue. They needed to be adapted. That was a very laborious and comprehensive exercise. And it fell to Venegal Narsingh Rao to head that committee, that branch of work, to adapt the adaptation of law's order, which was a very elaborate thing, very meticulously with an eye for minute details. Venegal Rao excelled in that work. That is how he was associated with the work of making the Government of India Act 1935 more workable.
Apart from this, on page 272 of your book, you have made a special mention about Sir B.N. Rao's role for the defense of persons who were facing trial for Indian National Army movement of Subhash Chandra Bose, and the trial took place at the Red Fort.
Before that, if you will permit me now, after the Government of India Act and his adaptation of law's orders, he became a judge of the Calcutta High Court, where he did splendid work. In fact, one of his judgments, I think G.P. Stewart in the Calcutta High Court, where he very brilliantly expounded the doctrine and test of repugnancy, has been quoted with approval by the Supreme Court in the famous Tikaramji case and many other cases thereafter.
Doctrine of repugnancy.
Repugnancy in the constitutional law, the doctrine of repugnancy, where the central law and the provincial laws are repugnant in how to test that and determine the validity. Apart from many other judgments, but this is one of those special, one of those cases of which special mention is made. And in due course, after his stint he did not retire from the Calcutta High Court. The man's versatility and diversity of interests and accomplishments, he was called upon to do some other work. And incidentally, he was also the Prime Minister of Jammu of Kashmir under Maharaja Hari Singh. And he was also the chairman of the Hindu Law Reform Committee, much before the Hindu Code in the 50s, the earlier version of that in the 1940s. BN Rau headed that committee. And then slowly, independence appeared to be within reach.
Round the corner.
Round the corner, and a constitution was also to be framed. So it was at that point of time that he was again offered judgeship of the Calcutta High Court, and it was taken for granted that Calcutta High Court and then the federal court, which was perhaps what he was entitled to, is legitimate due. But the man declined that, saying that today Indian Federation and Indian Constitution is round the corner. If only my personal ambition and desires were to be the criterion, I would have accepted that, but that is not how it should be. I think I must now immerse myself in the work of the Constitution. And that is how we became associated with that. It is that point of time in 1945, the Indian National Army, the trial started in Red Fort, and Bengal Narsingh Rao, with his expertise, he was a recognized expert in constitutional law and public international law. And with his expertise in these subjects, he chalked out a defense. The soldiers of the INA under Netaji were entitled to fight, were entitled to take up arms and fight for independence, for the freedom of the country. Such action would not be an offense under the municipal law. So that was the defense that defense that was put off and charted Bengal Narsingh Rao, and as we talked of earlier, brilliantly put forth by Bhulabhai Desai.
Yes.
Resulted in not one Indian Army personnel getting the capital sentence. They may have been deported, but not one suffered the death penalty.
Yes.
So that was the success of the defense.
Moving on, you have spoken and written about his role and contribution as the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly, and his assistance was especially mentioned in this. So that you may like to elaborate a little.
That is perhaps his greatest and most lasting contribution in his very varied and versatile life. He was the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly and made the first draft of the Constitution with his marginal notes and material for discussion. And this draft became the basis on which the Constituent Assembly debates proceeded. And in his capacity as constitutional advisor, he traveled to many countries, had meetings with a large number of important people. He was there in Ireland, and we have borrowed quite a bit from the Irish Constitution. The directive principles of state policy is something that we have taken from the Irish Constitution. He went to the United States, where he had meetings with some of the top persons there, Learned Hand, Felix Frankfurter, and many others. The great thing is that Frankfurter himself, an acknowledged authority, a Harvard professor and then a Supreme Court judge, observed that his interactions with Sir Bengal Narsingh Rao were some of the most fruitful experiences of his life, and went on to say, if the President of the United States were to ask me for a name to be a judge of our Supreme Court, that's the Supreme Court of the United States, Sir Bengal Narsingh Rao would be the first on my list. I don't think a greater tribute could have been paid. And of course, very, very richly deserved. And when the Constituent Assembly was still functioning, Bengal Narsingh Rao was also our representative to the United Nations. He was on the delegation to the UN. He was also on the International Commission of Jurists. And even in the United Nations, exemplary work which won the appreciation of people across the continents. Many of his contemporaries and colleagues in the United Nations said, here was a godlike man who doesn't get ruffled. When he speaks with some kind of a mellifluous voice, but always to the point.
Yes.
This was the man.
Next, I would like to ask you, Mr. Pai, that Sir BN Rao, when he passed away on 30th November 1953, he was just about 66. And in this connection, you have mentioned, and rightly so, it's quite significant that Sir BN Rao was not a member of the Lok Sabha, but yet the Speaker, Mr. Maulankar, decided a special mention and a tribute should be paid to him by way of a condolence or a obituary reference in the Lok Sabha. Would you like to comment on that?
After completing his work in the making of the Constitution, Sir BN Rau crowned his career, if we may say so, with a seat on the International Court of Justice. He was elected to the International Court where he was a judge. It is during that period that he took ill. In fact, he had cancer and passed away very soon, as you said, at the young age of 66, 67 in November 1953. And Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Leader of the House thought it appropriate to seek the Speaker's leave to move an obituary motion to mention and condole the death of Sir BN Rau. Of course, he richly deserved it. It is true he was not a member of the House. He was not a member of the Lok Sabha or any of its preceding bodies, the earlier Constituent Assembly or even prior to that, the Central Legislative Assembly. He was, as the Speaker himself, Mavlankar, said, his work and life was so interspersed with our parliamentary institutions. He had such a big role in the making of our Constitution and of our institutions. And it was but absolutely befitting that such a tribute should be paid to him. And it was not just an obituary mention, but Parliament stood up in silence for 2 minutes to mourn the demise of so great a person.
Yes.
If you will permit me, this is again, like I read out Pathak's tribute to Sir Shah Suleiman. Of course, you will find it in the book. What applies to biography of Justice Cardoso, his biographer, recalled a passage from T. Shah's translation of Homer's Odyssey to describe Cardoso. And that description, I have said, absolutely, very aptly fits Sir Benegal Narsingh Rao, and this is it. God will so crown what he says with a bloom of beauty that all who look on him are moved. When he holds forth in public, it's with assurance, yet with so honey-sweet a modesty that makes him shine out above the ruck of men who gaze at him whenever he walks their city, as if he were a god.
Beautifully put it. Yes.
Beautifully put, and this, I believe, applies equally to Sir Benegal Narsingh Rao, who is, it's difficult to find another like him.
Thank you very much. I think you've done really yeoman service for the coming generations by putting across the contribution of such eminent persons who put our republic on a very strong pedestal. Thank you very much. Namaskar.